everybody that I know is not shy to speak. And I'm looking around. Anybody in this room? Doug? You guys,
Doug.
I can't, anyway, I'm going to speak.
It's really good, Henry.
Beautiful, Henry. I couldn't get you because you are over here.
Oh.
I really wasn't planning on speaking today. I pretty much expressed my sentiments about Scott in my eulogy at the funeral. I'll just reiterate something that a friend of mine said, and again, it was in my eulogy. And my friend Michael Blatter, when he told his story about when he first met Scott at Lucky's, like most of us met Scott, and he called his story The Magic of Scott Braverman. And I've known Scott for 28 years, like a lot of you. I wasn't really one of his inner circle of friends, the Kimmers, the Lauries, etc., who hung out with him on a regular basis. I'd see him out and about. I came here many years for the art fair party. But I got to know Scott better these last 7 months, better than ever, these last 7 months. When I knew that his illness was getting worse, I decided to spend a lot of time with him. And it's funny, in my eulogy, I told a story about how at the last dinner we ever had with Scott out at a restaurant, what's the name of the restaurant? Mexican place?
Adobo Grill
on North Avenue. We took Scott to dinner right before he wound up going in the hospital. And he pulled me aside, he and I were talking, and he told me he had some regrets. And again, I won't go into what he said were his regrets. They were nothing. Scott has nothing to regret in his life. One of the regrets that I have, that I've developed over the last 7 months, was not having been as close to Scott all those years that many of you were. I got super close in these past 7 months. I was with him every other day, but I really feel like I missed out on an extraordinary person's life, not being as close with him as I could have been all those years. And I have a little jealousy of those of you who were that close to him. But at the same time, I'm very, very happy for you, for those of you who were. Because, as I said to Ron Roman earlier today, we all know a lot of people, and a lot of you are extraordinary people, and I'm glad to have gotten to know a lot of you. And we all know a lot of good people in life, but we know a handful of really extraordinary people. And Scott was that guy.
Yes.
I mean, the love that I've seen from all of you toward him, the dedication, the extent to which you see him as one of the great friends of your lives, as I do now also. It's a very rare thing, and it just says so much about him. And I miss him now more than I ever anticipated that I might, partly because of what I missed, and partly because of how well I got to know him. And it's that much of a loss. And at the same time, we're all lucky to be able to celebrate the good fortune we had to have him in our lives.
Amen.
So God bless him, and God bless all of you.
Thank you.
Amen.
I had the incredible once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of going with a couple on their honeymoon. Okay. I went to high school with a guy named Ron Zaragoza. We had all our classes together. And years later, I heard that Ron opened up a bar. Now, Ron was a really smart guy, good calculus guy. I never thought of him as being a partier, and all of a sudden, Ron Zaragoza has his bar. I go, well, I'm going. I know a guy with a bar. I live downtown. I go to the bar, and Ron has this bar called Mr. Lucky's with this guy named Scott Braverman. So, you walk in, he introduces me to Scott. He's got this purple velvet jacket on. And he's just like, boom, right right makes you feel like you're important. All of a sudden I go, well, I'm not Johnny Depp, but this guy might not know that I'm not Johnny Depp. And he just did that to probably so many people here. And so that's how I got to know him. Well, over a few years, he had his eyes on this girl, you know, Betsy Boyer. And he locked that job up. And then he's going to get married. The lovely Betsy is 6.5 months pregnant with Mr. Ben Braverman. And they get married. And Scott calls me up a few weeks before the wedding and he says, Dennis, he says, listen, you know, I'm getting married in a couple weeks. I go, I know that. I'm going to the wedding. And he said, well, my wife really wants to go to Italy for the honeymoon and she wants to do it before the baby is born. And I said, well, that's great. I mean, I would do it before the baby's born, you know. I mean, after you think you're going to do it after the baby's born, but then da-da-da-da-da, and it never happens. So I said, well, I think that's really good. And he said, I said, where are you going to go? And he says, well, Betsy only wants to go to Italy. I go, well, great. I know a lot about Italy, you know. I'm going there my whole life, and I can help you out. And he said, well, I need a little bit more than that. I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, well, we want to go for 14 days, but the first 10 days, you know, here's the thing. You speak Italian and I don't. You've driven in Italy and I've never driven in Italy. You know how to get from town to town and how long it takes, and I don't. So here's the deal. I said, okay. He said, I would like you to come for 10 days, and then we're going to go for 4 days, the remaining 4 days. And he said, I said, okay. He said, so I'll pay for your airfare, I'll pay for your hotel room, I'll rent the car, and I'll pay for your foods. I said, what about the liquor?
That is you, Dennis.
In a second, he said, not a chance.
Oh, smart man!
That is, I will remember that on my deathbed. I just was like, that is so. I said, well, let me think about it. I said, okay, I'll go. So we went, and I forgot the most important part. He said, I can't drive, I can't speak, and I want to drink on my honeymoon, and my wife can't, but you can. I said, okay, all right, that'll lock that up. So we go, and we, you know, I pushed Betsy, you know, she's kind of tiny. She had Ben out to here. I pushed Betsy with the left hand, I pulled my luggage with my right, and Scott was behind us with her luggage and his luggage. And you know, Northern Italy, it's all like this anyway, so everything is up a hill, down a hill, and everything. And it was just a great time. Then we go to my town in Asiago. We had a great time. They were treated like rock stars. Then we went to Venice. Now, we go to Venice. And I love, we don't have kids. I've never had kids. Our friends are our kids, to show them something really cool, like something like Venice, right? So, I mean, a few people here, Laurie White, Elisa Worley, they've been to Venice with us. You know, it's something to see. And so we go to Venice, and we get on the Vaporetto that's going to go from the train station down the Grand Canal to the Ponte Rialto and the whole deal. And we get on the train, and Scott and Betsy, like we look at all of our friends, they're like looking at each other like, oh my God, look at this. And we're going by the casino, and Betsy goes, Scott, this is so beautiful. Can you believe this? And I'm watching them, and they're going, yeah. You know, and we're going, and then Scott looks at me, and he says, you know something? I gotta give it to these Italians. They really know how to make this town look like Venice. And I went, but, like, and he looked at me and goes, don't even go there. You know, and that was the classic Scott Braverman line. It was just something funny about nothing. It's so much like the Seinfeld. Scott could have written for Seinfeld. You know, like George said, we have this show. What's the show about? It's a show about nothing. And Scott could make something funny about the basic stuff in life. And it was just a spectacular. That was the beginning of, you know, a long, fun time. But anyway.
May I? Scott's famous line is, excuse my language, what the fuck could possibly go wrong? I know, let's have 2 kids. Sort of worked for us.
And it did. And nothing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Where's the microphone? Can you say that louder? Okay. Is
Pass the
anybody
mic.
else? Yeah. Who else? Oh.
I will.
My name is Paul, and I feel kind of special tonight because some of you remember Scott would always introduce me. He called me Paulie, or Your Honor, or something like that. But he says, you know, Paul was the first person that I met when I came to Chicago after he left from California. And I always feel proud of that because look what that turned out. If I was the first friend that he met from Chicago, look at he's made hundreds, thousand more, and it's not easy to think that was not a hard thing for him to do because that was by his nature. So I've just got a couple old stories about him. Is that not a lot of people know this, but it was him and Ron Zaragoza and Greg Mostek. They used to set up a thing over at the Drake Hotel in the Gold Coast room, and it was a formal dance, a formal party. And you know what the charity was for? How ironic! It was for children with brain cancer.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. You know, this is a long time ago. That, and then just because I met him first didn't mean that he didn't lead me around to show me different things to do in the city. Because to tell you, I was a little bit of a slow learner. I was a little bit. No, not really. I didn't really go out that much. When I first started living on my own and working, I limited myself honestly to going out Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. Honestly. But no. But what happened? Who taught me about Sundays? Scott. Oh my God. We did. It was a party all the time, but different from the seasons. In the wintertime, it was at PJ Clark's, Division Street, starting at about noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Summertime, oh, everyone thought Scott was a city guy. Oh, no. We drive out to Oak Brook Polo Grounds every Sunday. Oak Brook Polo Grounds, pull the car up. We'd have lawn chairs sitting there, and we would wait on like a hand over foot. Just a wonderful time. But and all the other things I could go on and on and on. And Old Town Art Fair will never be the same. But I think we should try to keep it the same. Everyone here in their heart to think of Scott when you think of Old Town Art Fair. How else can you think of anything else, really? But one more story. One more quick one.
I should have gotten Ron.
Somebody's ready to grab the mic.
Ron
But here's-
running through the trees to get the mic.
Here's one more cute thing. Because I knew him way back before he knew Betsy. Everyone thought he was like the consummate swinging bachelor. You know, this party, that party, that party. And I tell my wife, I said, oh, Scott, he's never going to get married. Don't leave him. He's a bachelor like that. I said, what do you think I'm going to see? Walk down the street and he's going to be walking out pushing the stroller, carrying diaper bags? Guess what? Guess what happened? That's exactly what happened. Right on Old Town, right in front of Topo Gigi. I'll never forget it. There's Scott. Scott, how you been? Oh, good. And he's got one arm pushing and he's holding the diaper bag like this. But anyway.
And Ben in the other
Nice to see
hand.
everybody here. Here, Chris.
So nice. So that was sweet.
Oh, okay, sweetheart. Yeah, real quick.
Real quick.
Cousin Joel.
Cousin Joel. You know, I first met Scott when he was in his 20s. I mean, he's been my cousin since he was born, but I didn't know him because I was not around much, and he was a lot younger than I am. So I didn't get to see him, and when he did show up, everybody I had ever met, it seemed, and thought I was pretty connected in town, knew him, even though he hadn't been here for how many years?
Oh, I don't know.
You're Scott Braverman's cousin? I thought I was saying, hey, no, me, you know, you know, it was, so that's how known and loved he was by all of these folks. Scott was probably the most generous person, just like his father. His dad, I worked for him. I worked for Jerry Braverman. He was so generous. My father, he used to take my folks, my dad didn't have a lot, and he'd take my folks out to dinner every Sunday night. And unfortunately, he wouldn't let my father take the check. Jerry had to pay the check. And my dad got so insulted that he stopped going out with the Bravermans because he wasn't allowed to take a check. That man, he won't give me a check. That's it, he's done. So that's one story. But Scott, we used to go to New York, and Ron is here. He knows that. And those New York trips were amazing. Where was the place we stayed? I'm going to ask Betsy. Where?
Not the Mercer, the
Meridian.
No, there was a place. There was a club we used to go to, a bar, where they had like a waterfall in the men's room. Maybe that was before. You know what? That was before your time. Never mind. Never mind, Betsy. Do you remember that? And and all of us, and we were, and there were all these girls out in the bar, and they made all of us take them into the men's room to see the fountain. They wanted to see the fountain. In those days, there were no, bathrooms for both. So the guy would be standing there, and they'd go, there'd be the girls back there watching the fountain. Anyway, I wanted to do one thing. I went back to my roots, and I decided I should sing a song. For Scott, this fits it. It's an old Scottish song, and I don't know it that well. I know that, so I decided it's not what you think. This to me, when I happened to come across it in the last couple of days, and I thought, this is Scott, but in a more serious way. So, how'd you doing?
How'd you doing?
Of all the money that e'er I spent it in good company. And all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. Oh, all the comrades that e'er I've had are sorry for my going away. And all the sweethearts that ever I've had would wish me only one more day to stay. But since it falls unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and I'll softly call. Good night and joy be with you all. Good night and joy be with you all.
Yeah, Joe.
This is kind of what this is all about. It was kind of, Pat's a little crazy, and a lot of people that loved him and everything, but I want people to speak, because I think this is interesting. Ben, are you going to speak? You don't have to?
Not yet. I don't want to follow that.
All right, well, we got Ron Zaragoza as a backup.
Okay, Brian.
Wow, that's a tough act to follow. I'm going to spare you all and not sing.
Like a virgin.
Like a virgin. I actually should have followed Denny, because I too shared honeymoon with the Bravermans. I think it was true.
That's true.
Yeah,
Totally true.
they were into the South Side thing. They said, all right, we had Denny for a while, now let's go to Ron. And so, it was a wonderful time. And I said this before, I've known Scott for a long time. We were inseparable. He was the brother I never had. I never saw him so happy when he was in Italy with Betsy. He had just been married and he was just glowing. So it was a real precious moment for me to think about that. Some fun stuff though. You all know Scott likes Uno's pizza? No? I was doing some quick math. I think he and I would always have pizza on Saturday after Lucky's on Friday. And I think we consumed 250 pizzas. So I don't know how we can extrapolate from that, how much beef that is, but that was a lot of calories, and I still love that pizza. I don't know if Serge is here, but couldn't make it. No. So that's kind of a fun fact. So one of the things that, to me, Scott, he was just an amazing person to me. He was the funniest person I knew. And I think some people touched on that. Scott was a guy that he would see you from afar, and you look at him, you're like, he's going to say something funny. He's going to say something funny. And he just had that way of getting you out of whatever mood you had. You know, if you had a rough day and you're coming into Lucky's and you're mad at the world or whatever, and life's not fair, Scott had a way to just quickly kick it out of you and make you laugh. He had amazing talent in that. It was very natural. And so a little story tied to that, you know, one of the things I said, in my view, he was my happy meal, you know, like no matter what I was doing, getting together with Scott, it was going to be fun. It was going to, I was going to be able to laugh at whatever problem I had because he had that ability to bring that out. So I just want to say one thing about this picture because I know we all had these experiences. We've all had these. They're not just unique to me. That's the wonder of Scott. He makes everybody feel like his best friend. The photo that's on the table out there, the pool table, I want you to look at that next time and think about this story because Scott was on a roll that night. That night, we were supposed to take a picture for Chicago Magazine, and the writer was there, the photographer was there, Greg, Scott, and I were there.
How many years into the bar was it?
I think it was 2 years into the bar.
Oh, 2 years. Okay.
2 years. And Scott just was on fire. I don't know what it was. I don't know what he had, but he was just making us laugh. He was making everybody. The photographer couldn't even hold the camera straight. So it was like, okay, Scott, we got to get this picture because we got to go, all right? And we're trying to take this picture. And if you look at that picture, we are biting our lips because we're trying not to laugh anymore. And that picture brings that memory to me every time I see it. And I hope you can enjoy the same experience. Thank you.
It doesn't.
I don't know why we're.
You guys, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
This was not about necessarily.
Who's going to be in order? Yes, but Scott, you'll come after me then. I met Scott because he had an issue at Lucky's. He called me up. People at Winston and Strawn, who were regulars on the Friday night, Saturday night crowd, said, you got to help him out. And he called me up and he said, come on over. And if you recall, they had curtains hanging, and the purple curtains, as we've already referred to. And if you remember, the city started writing them tickets and that means they had to close early. And Scott said, we will never make it as a bar. So what happened then was I went into court. We got the tickets vacated, but at the same time, we had to draft an ordinance that allowed Lucky's to stay open that whole time later on. And those of you, and so, but I had only gone into Lucky's a couple of times during the day, and so I never knew what the nightlife was. And then all of a sudden, when you go in on a Friday night, you never want to leave.
By design.
Yes, exactly. And so, as Ron talked about Uno's and the pizzas, all those things come to mind because Scott was an amazing person. But I think Scott was like most guys are. Quite frankly, we're never that happy. We aren't that happy. And I remember the day that I hadn't seen him and I had gone into Lucky's a couple of times. And he hadn't been around. And it was a day, and there he was, and he said, Bobby, I got to talk to you. And I'm like, you do? Okay. I'm going to get married. You are? Now, do you know who? So he said, I haven't talked to her yet about it, but I am going to get married to this woman. But not right away, and I'm not going to tell her right away. And when I say guys our age are not that happy because we're always looking for the right woman. And from that point on, Scott's life changed. He was a different person. He was a person that we all knew outside that we would hear, but inside he became that person. And the day you guys got married it fulfilled his dream and everything that has transpired since then, because it made him whole. And he would never have done it without you.
That's right.
And for my next joke.
This is on the theme of Scott as an extraordinary human being. A lot of you knew him as the impresario of Lucky's or some of his other establishments that he created over the years. I actually knew him as this super sharp business guy who could do numbers in his head and quickly recalculate how this deal could be structured, because I met him way after most of you when he had his railcar business, and I was his contact at the state of Illinois to try to sell it up the chain to the governor and the Department of Transportation. So through that whole process of not knowing that his business partner at the time was really kind of
Careful.
yeah.
You're on the microphone.
There's lawyers here. Lawyers and video.
I got really close to Scott and became good friends. But I want to tell you a story about how I came to see how he connected to all of us and kept those connections over 30 and 40 years. I call him the entrepreneur of friendship. And there's a couple stories that was already referred to. Doug was talking about this kind of group of Friday night people. After he got sick, had his first surgery, you all know how important friends are in Scott's life. And even as he was kind of struggling with memory and his ability to function in the professional realm that he was used to, he worked so hard at collating this list of names and sending out this text every week. We're going to meet at the Godfrey. We're going to meet at Pomp and Circumstance. We're going to meet at Hotel Lincoln. And a bunch of us tried to be there as many Friday nights as we possibly could. And the sort of capstone story I want to tell is about a year ago. So 2 years into his surgery, he outlasted the median survival from glioblastoma he'd already quadrupled the survival time. But by this stage, he couldn't really navigate. He'd get lost. Once took him to a movie and he went to the bathroom, and 15 minutes later I'm like, oh, I gotta go find him. He was out making friends in the lobby. Willing to be guided back to the theater. But we were going down to Schiller and Wells to Pomp and Circumstance, which was the Friday night venue for, I don't know, 6 or 9 months. And as we were crossing North Avenue, I'm reminiscing about, what he'd lost in terms of memory and in terms of navigational ability, because as you all know, Scott was super sharp about everything. And I'm thinking that, and he's saying, Scott, who do we know in San Francisco? Who do we know in St. Louis? Who do we know in LA? Which city do we collectively know the most people? Because we got to duplicate this Friday night experience. We got to spread it. And I was like, okay. But as we walked down whatever street it is behind Wells, to go the back way by Catherine Cook, and he'd tell me the story again of Ben and Natalie going there, and many of you are friends from that era. I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, this is how he connected to all of his friends over all of these years, because he was constantly scheming about how he could do it better.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ida, Ida, Ida.
Oh,
Turn
where's
around,
Ida?
come here. Ida.
Ida!
This woman has to say 1 or 2 or even 3 words because she was so important to the Braverman
Oh my God, to
family
this family?
and all the parties that we had.
Hi, Ida!
Ida, let's give it up for Ida. Give it up, let's go!
Ben stands up for his item.
That's right.
That's right. That's respectful.
That's right. And it should be.
I'm just honored to have known Scott. He made a big difference in my life because he showed me that I could do anything that I wanted to do. I could be anything I wanted to. And he had the courage, no matter how bad it was, how good it was, he never would let you feel bad. If you had a bad day, he just would knock that out the park. He taught me so much. He taught me about myself. He taught me who I am and what I am. And I am so honored and so blessed that God brought him into my life. I raised his son Ben, his daughter Natalie, who are the love of my life. Bessie,
She paused.
Bessie, she's the love of my life. We done had our love, but I love her to death. We all are so, some kind of way in this life. Everybody that's here, even the ones that weren't able to make it, Scott made a difference in everybody's life. Because he never had a bad word to say about anybody, no matter what he was. If you had a bad day, Scott would make that day look beautiful.
That's right.
I don't care what he was. He had a joke, and he could tell some jokes that y'all know.
Oh yeah.
Scott could tell some jokes that make you. He looked at me one day. I just gotta tell y'all this. I was upstairs with Scott, and this was when Scott had. He just couldn't. I am. This was Scott. He couldn't do what he wanted to do, and I told him, I say, look. I say, we're gonna do this, okay? I said, you're gonna look at it like this. Remember, I changed your son, I changed your daughter, so we gonna do what we gotta do. So we went in the bathroom. Wait a minute. Scott told me, he said, now, if I have an accident, what you gonna do? I said, I'm gonna wash my hands, we're gonna keep on going. He said, oh, okay then. He said, okay then. So we laughed that off. But no matter how bad, all the way to the end, Scott always gave me that smile.
That's right.
I love that man, I always will. I respect him, because it's all you can do. I can't say.
All right, Ida.
Oh boy. Okay. Without hitting the person in front of you, raise your hand if at any point in knowing my father you felt like you were at least his best friend or super close friend.
Yeah.
And look around. Look at how many hands you see.
Yeah.
Now think about yourself. And I'm sure some of you, some of you are close. But, I mean, I've had a lot of friends, and only a handful are my best friends. My dad loved everybody. Everybody was his best friend. He was an amazing person. And, I mean, a lot of people here have these best friend stories, from Lucky's or Laguna, whenever they knew my father. Well, I knew him as a dad. And yeah, we were best friends, but we weren't drinking buddies.
Good.
I mean,
Close.
Nothing I'm willing to disclose. But yeah, me and my dad were pretty close, had that father-son bond. And he talked to me a lot. He had a lot he cared about, especially family. But his three big things were his car. He's like, take care of my car. I can't drive it anymore, it's yours. If anything happens to that car, it's on your head. And that car today, my friend Nick's here, I sold it to his friend who fixed it up for me. That car is in better condition than it's ever been since I've been able to ride in it.
All right, good job.
Check one out of 3, I got covered. His second thing was college. College is important. And I was like, no, you're wrong, that's stupid. He's like, no, trust me, college is important. I want you to go to college. And obviously, a lot of you know I did that whole DeVry program.
my dad got to see me graduate college. Well,
Yeah.
he got to know that I graduated college.
That's nice.
So step 2, that's got the top.
Bravo.
Number 3, he wanted me to take care of my mom and sister. And I thought, oof. Anything else, please. Oh God, okay.
It's all right, bang.
So,
Get ready now. You better have a comeback.
yeah, that's not something I can do easily. But, I mean, you are your contributions to the world, right? You are your impact on the planet. Whatever you do in your life defines your character. And most of my dad's life is shown here, everybody who came. My dad is invested in your memories, and all of you are a part of my father, like it or not, I don't care. But I'm asking you to help me take care of my mom and sister, because I heard it when we went for Ida's partner, that, you know, in the first month or 2, people are around, people call, people email, people text, people show their support. But eventually that dwindles off. And I'm not always going to be here, you know, I've got college parties to go to and trips to go on and stuff. My sister has school, my mom, you know, she's got her own life, but I'm not always going to be here to take care of them. So I'm asking you guys, who are friends of my father, to just come back and visit. You can call if you want, you don't have to, we're always home, we don't do anything. But just, you know, come back when you can, say hi, stop in. If you have more stories that you weren't able to share today, you didn't feel were appropriate for Facebook, just, you know, come back and share them and say hi to my mom, my sister if she's around, and, you know, come say hi. As part of my father, I'd love to talk to you. Thank you for coming.
I'm right here.
He's like Sal, his caregiver. I have to put a bell on him. Where are you, Sal?
Where's Sal?